All right, welcome back. Um, we are in our series talking about the strategic goals outlined in the FedRAMP roadmap that was released recently. And today we're going to talk about the third goal, significantly scaling the size and scope of a trusted FedRAMP marketplace. So let's jump over to that. You know, we've been doing FedRAMP for the 12 years that the program's been around. We've seen the marketplace grow to 300 plus authorized cloud services. We've seen a lot of different subsets of customers that we've worked with in all different areas, from getting their authorization initially, advising them, helping them with engineering support, and doing continuous monitoring and doing SOC monitoring and managed detection and response. And we've seen quite quite a lot. But we've definitely seen that it seems like we've hit an inflection point where the program is not able has not been able to kind of keep up with demand, and I think that that's kind of being acknowledged here. Um, the marketplace has not kept pace with agency demand for new and innovative services. I mean, the bottom line here is there are innovative cloud services in the space, and the cost to get into FedRAMP haven't come down that much, right? It still takes a long time to get through the process, and that really smothers out small businesses and innovative companies that have a lot to offer that the government wants to tap into.
And yeah, and to me, one of the biggest aspects of this is the sponsorship, the partnership, that the government agency has with the CSP. So helping somebody or helping establish an easier path to sponsorship to me is one of the largest stumbling blocks to get through the FedRAMP process. Getting
I,
that
re- I really
sponsor.
think I really think they're like nailing that in this first point where they talk
Yes.
about the pilot with the DoD. It's like you think about the amount of federal spend that goes into the Defense Department, right? And and often, Gary, like some of the more innovative customers we've worked with
Right.
have been on the R&D side of DoD.
Correct.
Some like
Some
DIU.
Simmer grant or DIU or somebody like that,
I mean, as a
who's
as a
doing.
as a
Right,
trove of potential sponsors, like there's no
mhm,
better place in DoD.
right,
Um,
agreed.
so why not? That, and they have um, depending on which pocket you're in, they've got an advanced sense of doing DoD RMF, which is all based off of NIST.
Correct.
So these processes are literally designed by the civilian side. So why not tap that and leverage that and have some? I mean, we've established reciprocity in one direction, but why not have that reciprocity kind of go back in the other direction? And I think
We
that
sort
that's
of
what they're
talked a little
talking
bit
about.
about that in the last go around here. But one of the struggles though with that small business or mid-sized business or that new startup who's trying to get a government contract, whether it's a SIBR or an OTA or just a contract itself, going into the government and doing work for the first time, it's meeting these security requirements can be a bit overwhelming. And then also at the same time, getting those requirements that you have to integrate your solution set to meet the input standards or the automation standards within the Department of Defense can be a little overwhelming for some companies as well. So helping to find that sponsorship and then helping to either add tooling or something that can help with that integration piece from the security compliance area, I think is also very important. The low review
When
process is very helpful here. And I agree with the reciprocity and stuff like that with trusted, authorized partners. But getting that sponsorship is extremely hard. And then after you've got it, going through that process, connecting to the Department of Defense, and then you find out you also have to connect some additional areas so you can move documentation back and forth. That could be a bit of a struggle. For me, that's why I really like this second bullet, right? Having some, form some initial joint authorization groups. How could you see that working? Kind of tailored
I mean,
in
we've
the
seen
same way,
we've seen the first one, and we've
right?
worked with them since the program started
Correct.
in the jab, and that's what they're
Yes.
talking about here. And I think this is really clear that the intention is, hey, agencies, it's this isn't just the jab that can do this. You can get together, and we want to form groups, particularly cohorts of kind of like-minded agencies that have similar requirements, likely, right? That work on this together and distribute the burden of being an authorizing official,
Right. Because
being in
we
that
know there's a
authorization
burden on their
role.
side. Right, there's a burden on their side. They have to review the package. You have to review the monthly, Kanban deliverables. So there is effort, and if you're doing 30 of those, that can take up a lot of time.
Yep.
So, and
It's a matter of lowering the effort and bringing more in to spread that load. I think it's a two prong
right,
approach here to reduce the burden, and then well, really three prong with the tooling and automation that can help, and that's where they get into talking about continuous monitoring, and instead of making this a paper pushing exercise with signatures being circulated and you know
wet signatures too, right?
yeah, exactly. um you know all these cloud services interoperate, well, yeah, at the end of the day using APIs. So why don't the authorization processes on also operate in similar ways? Let's
This might be
modernize
Might be
that
another
side.
way also, if you think about, centralizing and automating this continuous monitoring phase here. What about continuous authorization as well? So, figuring out how to tie that in place, because I mean, going through an audit can be a big burden for these guys as well, because it can eat up a lot of time. And if you're doing it for 8 weeks a year, that's basically 2 months a year that you're going through an audit. So why not? Let's figure out a way to then
and,
streamline that audit process as well.
and like we talked about in previous videos here recently, I think the first goal, um like with the significant changes,
Yes,
if you're only doing that once a year, then your major changes to the system have to wait on that audit. So if you're doing it continuously, though, right, that gives the government a chance to get those innovative features in sooner.
correct.
um and it's like, I think I've said this before, but there has to be some trust that the process is working, right? And the audit is about validating that the process is working. But then you've got to let the process for doing significant changes and things like that ultimately function. And I think that that's part of what they've really given a nod to here.
I would agree with that too. I like to see this, because automation, and I think we've talked about this before as well. That remove the human out of many things, and you'll find that these machines become a lot more secure when you remove the error prone human.
Yep.
So,
And this has been a big you know, effort that we've undertaken here at Infusion Points to look at this process all the way around, even from looking at it from the agency lens, looking at it from the CSP lens, and the tools and interactions that they're going to need. And I think we'll have some exciting announcements here in 2024 to talk about. So
well, if you think about this also, Jason, a lot of these tools that many of these organizations use leverage commercial, kind of governance, risk, and compliance tools, and that can be a little bit of a burden as well if they don't have the proper FedRAMP modifications in place. And
yeah,
if
some of
if
those
the
tools can be really bloated, and
yes,
let's just face it, and
right,
they're not kind of purpose made around the peculiarities of FedRAMP. I mean,
right,
which is very specific about things.
correct.
So you sort of need a fit for purpose tool for that.
I 100% agree. So,
Awesome. Well, thanks
all
so
right.
much for tuning in to this episode, and we got one more in the series to go.